This video, like many on my channel, brought to you by what delicious energy formula? You guessed it, it's Supps, my dude. Maybe you'd like to try a flavor like Sakura Splash. It's a delicious, refreshing sour cherry. Not really that sour, more just tangy in a way. I find it actually balances the flavour up quite well. Obviously, Supps has no sugar. I find unlike other energy formulas and drinks, it doesn't make you irritable. Gives you a nice smooth come up, nice plateau, and a really nice taper off where you don't feel like you do a crash until you need one more. I only drink one portion of this a day. If I wanted to have more flavour from Supps, I'd get the caffeine-free one. You can get 10% off anything on their website, gamersupps.gg, with my code Thorin, Thorin, Supps, caffeine-free, gamer teas, AFK blend to help you sleep, waifu cops, apparel, check it out. Right, obviously we have reached the final stage of the major. That's right, I know you might have thought, because it reached stage 3, that was just the cancer of the format, killing the major, but actually the best part of the major is about to begin. It is the 4 days of playoffs, what we all live for, right? I'll do a separate video one day about why we don't have it like the international, where the majority of the tournament's the playoffs. But okay, that's to be put on the shelf for another day. So now that we're into the playoffs, I'm obviously going to keep the pick'ems going, even though I failed them like a mofo. All good. I'm sure you want some of my advice. So when it comes to doing the pick'ems, we'll dive straight into the client here. I'm going to do this video, and you're also going to see separately 2 other videos that are actually going to be a preview for the quarterfinal matches, because obviously they're on 2 separate days, each 2 matches. And what I'm going to do basically, I'll go in game and start talking, is I'm first of all just going to show you what happened in stage 3 for me and which teams didn't make it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do more of sort of a vibes-based pick 'em, like most people do. Most people just talk some way through it. And then I'm separately going to publish on the same channel 2 videos where I actually break down the quarterfinals, but as in I go deep on the veto angles, narratives. If you don't know, the past majors, I've actually yielded some quite interesting angles on what like Carrigan would do. I think I have the best read on Carrigan's veto, basically. I've got the read on him in terms of what he did back at Copenhagen with that vertigo float against Spirit. I had an interesting angle on some of the things he might have done against Vitality in G2 at the last major, so let's get into it. Now, as I said, I failed the last stage. Stage 3, I only got 4, so I was 1 off. I got Namiga last place, that's easy enough. That felt obvious to me. I got Faze, which for some people was a risk, but I thought it could work out. Navi, people probably thought that was a gamble, but I just thought to myself, if you don't know, by the way, one thing I'll get into in my preview videos is actually Navi has already tried everything. That's why I'm certain a roster move is coming unless they literally win this major, because they've basically tried everything, both in vetoes. They actually veto all over the place now, according to the opponent, and their picks. So at this point in time, I actually think they've tried everything. This is the last hurrah. But I thought he'd managed to get it together against this level of opposition. I mean, look who they played. They played Namiga, that's an easy win. Then they played 3D Max. Then they played Spirit, which was, in theory, going to be a loss. Then they played G2. I mean, that should be a win, right? That's just quite a logical progression. That's not that tough. This G2's obviously a bit of a scuffed roster with a stand-in, so I got a bit lucky with the draw, but I thought Navi could make it. Mongols, I was actually quite sure. I mean, they're usually pretty good in group stages. Obviously, I did not have Vitality there. I had them 3-0, so the Legacy one blew my mind as well. I would still go back and pick Vitality to win that one. I didn't have Team Looker coming last. I really thought they'd put up a better showing. This is a team that, remember, has like shown good performances against people like Mouse before online. I think it was Melbourne or something. So Mongols, all sorts of teams out there. Pain, I definitely didn't expect. Look, I did say I think they should be a decent team, but I never would have expected. I mean, to be fair, they got kind of an easier run than I thought overall, who they ended up drawing. But for example, I didn't think they would beat VP. I actually thought VP would get them. Almost did come back and get them, but they didn't in the end. I did have Mouse, but Mouse was my other 3-0. So essentially, Vitality and Mouse being my 3-0s is what fucked my pick'em. So I don't regret that. I would take it again tomorrow. As you saw, Mouse couldn't lose the best of 3s, no matter how close they were, no matter how much they were down. That's what would happen in this tournament, in my opinion. If this was a best of 3 Swiss system the whole way, like a PGL or a Star Ladder, I actually think Vitality and Mouse would have 3-0'd. I don't know if I would have got Legacy 0-3 though. That's the part where I would have been wrong, because obviously that I had these 2 there, and then I had Spirit over here instead of 3-0, because I thought Spirit, I didn't think they'd be playing Navi. I actually thought they'd be playing, I think I had them playing Vitality or something. I can't remember what the actual order was on my original simulator. I obviously had Aurora because they have the firepower, but sadly they shit the bed. I thought they could make it through. And yeah. And I had, it was Lin Vision, not Legacy. I actually had Lin Vision as my last place team. So look, if you had Lin Vision winning games, enjoy, I guess. But I would take them again to be 0-3. So I don't regret this pick 'em at all. I had a lot of logical reasons behind it. So for the playoffs, we're going to go a bit off vibes, a bit of sort of narrative factors. Because by the way, I actually think, here's an interesting detail. Someone once told me this in League of Legends. I'd been following League of Legends for a few years, but I never thought of myself as an expert like I am in CS, because I didn't go deep in the drafting league, or I'm not that much of an expert about how the comps work or what the characters do. I know things like player performance. I have a sense of how people communicate, what their overall strategy is, simple macro concepts. But someone once told me, believe it or not, he actually thought I'd found an alternate way to analyse esports, which is narratives are based on things that happen in the game if you do them accurately, especially if you get to know the players, etc. And so he actually said that narratively I was actually pretty good at analysing and predicting just based on that alone. So I think for this sort of a segment, that's one thing I'm going to rely on a lot, is intangibles, because this is going to be on stage in an arena in America, and it is the major. So I think there are certain teams that are big favourites that's going to put pressure on and give chances for upsets, but I also think there are going to be some underdogs are going to crumble at this stage, and I'm going to heavily bias that. And for example, yes, I'm also going to get really hyphy around Faze Clan, not because they've actually shown me enough yet. If you don't know, they've only won on 3 maps, and their only real big name win, I mean, I guess they had the mouse game, that was an upset, is just the Mongols one, right? So in general, you don't look at them like they should be a team in the final or winning. You probably on paper would take Furia to be the best out of these, or the Mongols get it together finally. But I'm going to favour, for example, the fact that I don't think Simple's going to be scared on stage. Karrigan always fucks with the veto and with the opponent with the calls. You got all these clutch lamp. I mean, the joke is even Elysia's played a bazillion playoffs, right? So we're going to do it in order, which is the Spirit and Mouse, and I think it's Furia and Pain are the first two. So we'll do both sides like that. So Furia against Pain. Now, people will know, I think Pain's a pretty canny squad. I think it was quite shrewd, if you watch Snake and Banter, that they did pick up Davideus, who is Chilean, and they picked up DGT, who's from Uruguay, because those are people, if you don't know, Spanish and Portuguese are 90% the same. There's a lot of it's accent and just tiny little details. They can understand what's being told to them in Portuguese, Brazilian, and they were good fraggers in other teams within the South American scene. So you can't get the big names from MIBR and Furia. This is the angle you go for, and even Legacy, apparently. So I do think Pain's a canny squad. Big Azera just re-signed. I think he's a good IGL. I think he's the best IGL in Brazil. But the difference is, the firepower at the moment for Furia is utterly unrealistic, what's happened in terms of this tournament in the last stage. Like, the stage before that was a little bit more plausible. But I do think the general trend is correct. I do think Molodoi looks like he's going to be one of their stars as an AWP. Keserata will be their second best player. Yakinda, I just need him to be functional. Yuri's coming up as your 4th best player. He's actually had a sort of a renaissance. Some of his lurking seems legit now. Fallen, as a result, doesn't have to do anything. He can just be Karrigan, but without even the calls, as far as I'm concerned. So I think Furia will take this one. I do think Molodoi might feel some pressure, but spoiler, I think almost everyone on Pain is going to be burdened with pressure. I can't even imagine how young baby Snow is actually going to hold up on stage. So I'm taking Furia all day for this one. I also think people like Fallen, as much as his game's fallen off, he's not even the AWP now. You know what? Put him in the odd clutch. He'd probably still win it on stage, though, won't he? And he knows all the veteran tricks. True, he hasn't been in a major playoffs in 2019. Some of these people have never been in a major playoffs, or even close to sniffing it. Then we're going to do the other match that's on the first quarters, which is Spirit versus Mouse. Now, traditionally, people might know, even from last year, Mouse is the counter to Spirit. They just have something about, first of all, the matchup, certain maps that they're pretty good on. Secondly, I actually think they just have better distributed skills. So it means unless Donk and Shiro go crazy, it's very hard for Mouse to lose to Spirit. But here's the key difference. At majors, I'm always going to take Team Spirit, just like at the last major. And the reason why is because the difference is Team Spirit has more, like Donk is more reliable to perform than any other stars on Mouse. Like Spinks maybe, I mean, to admit it's more like semis and finals he drops off in. Exertion, the problem is, so far, is the new device. He's had a lot of choking issues on stage at majors, in my opinion, and he's bombed it a bunch of times when on paper he should have been in the semis or the final at the last 2 majors. So I'm going to take Spirit. I think they're way more reliable. I also think the fact that they skipped the odd event, they didn't need the boot camp. That's not that necessary. I also think some quite interesting things they changed up in their vetoes. I'm actually going to say Spirit wins this one. I think the Mouse factor, it still just isn't there in the biggest events. They're certainly better than before with Spinks. The firepower's way better, but I have to actually see them do it on the stage at a major before I'm going to believe in them. So I've already got, I think, 2 obvious ones. Some people might go Mouse, but I'm going to say Spirit. I think a lot of people are against Mouse because until they win like Astralis, you can't really believe in them, can you? Then we've got Navi against Vitality. Now, what's sad is, I think that was the match of the year. I think Cologne final, Navi against Vitality, 4 maps, was the match of the year. Both teams could have won it. Navi played incredibly, by the way. It was one of the best series they played all year, but they lost because Vitality was on their bullshit. Now, that was the lineup with Spinks. Obviously, not this one with Rops, but if anything, Vitality's better. They just don't lose, obviously. Their veto is unbelievable. Navi's veto is all over the place. And do you want to know the worst news of all? Navi's best map currently is Inferno, and that is the home map, the godlike map of Vitality. And no, Navi isn't doing some legacy bullshit. Then add in Navi's players are playing quite poorly, generally. There's not really the firepower they had last year, or the X factor of JL winning the club. This is Vitality all day long. I'm not even concerned about Navi in this one. Look, you've got Blade and you've got Alexi, so I won't say you've got a 0% chance. They could come up with something brilliant, but the problem is, I think they've already tried everything. I think that's what the last 3 months were. That's why interview comments seem like they're almost negotiating with their fans as each event goes by, that eventually they're going to make the roster move. It's just about who and in what fashion. So I think Vitality wins this one. Bad luck to Navi that they drew them. You got clapped in that. If you don't know, they were both 3-1 teams, so... if you don't know, one of the 3-1 teams obviously doesn't play another room. It's a bit unlucky for Navi in that sense. Now, Faze Clan against Mongols. Obviously, they already played this one. I actually think Faze got incredibly lucky. The only way they could have been more lucky, in my opinion, is if somehow they could have played Pain. Because every other team, I think, would be a favourite. Like, on paper, Furia is a favourite. I know not overall, but you think about people like Keserato and Fallen have experienced majors, and Yuri. You look at this, Yakindar's been in major playoffs before. I actually think right now they're even looking pretty decent in terms of form. That pool's still a little bit undecided, but the map pool for Faze is incredibly shallow. This is the first tournament with a real 5-man lineup. So the key thing here is getting Mongols is amazing because 1, Mongols did look already like they got intimidated by Simple popping off. 2, I think Simple already, in my opinion, is better than 9-10. 3, Senzu, their best player, I think actually chokes on stage. He's the exertion of their team in that sense. Mazzinho's very young and also I think has sometimes chokes. That's what used to be the problem last year. At the end of the year, he got way better, but even so, and they've just so rarely ever won on stage. So I'm sorry, add in the arena, the atmosphere. I think Faze is going to take this one. This one I'm fairly sure about. The next one's where it gets interesting. Because if it wasn't Furia, like if they had any of these two teams, I would absolutely, since I want people to get the coin, I would honour, look, I might make a bet on Faze if it was against an underdog, but I would put them as an underdog and I would pick any of these other teams to go through. They're playing the only team I actually think that could get to the semis here that they could beat, which is Furia. And you know what? The current guy who's carrying hard with the AWP is obviously Molodoi, a completely inexperienced player. I will take Simple to beat him right now. He might even be a tiny bit sharper than Simple right now, but the difference is Simple is powering up tournament match to match to match, and I think he's going to be way better on stage. And I think the crowd is going to be heavily with Faze Clan, by the way. Meanwhile, I think Fallen's calling hasn't been there for me. Keserato's very good. You know what? Right now, here's the thing. As an actual overall player, I do think actually he's better than Frozen. But I'll tell you what, right now, I think Frozen's form has been excellent this whole year for Faze Clan. It seems like he really kills it having Elige going first. So I've got to say, I'm going to take Faze to make it to the final. I'm going to, like a lot of people, take that. Now, spoiler, I'm not going to take them to win because I want you to actually get the coin. Yeah, I'd like them to win. Yes, I can make a case they'll win. Yes, the Magic... Listen, I didn't pick them to win the last major. I don't think they'll win this one. If they do, awesome. Now, Vitality against Spirit is very interesting because it's all about not Spirit. You think I'm going to say Spirit, didn't you? You thought I was going to say Donk has to carry, Shiro has to turn up, will Zontix do it? What about the map pool? Will they be able to survive on that? No. Here's what you need to think about here. I've seen so many playoffs with Ziwu in them. And it's not ever that Ziwu played bad. If you don't know, when I say he underperforms, I'm talking about because he's a god, he underperforms as a 1.19 rating, which would be excellent for anyone else. If Molodoi had that in the semis, he'd have a fucking ticker tape parade. The problem is, once that happens, Vitality, even with this roster, does often rely on Ziwu to be the best player in the server for at least 1 or 2 maps of a series. Maybe not the whole 3 if you play a 3-mapper, but at least 1 or 2. And 1, he is a slow starter on big stages. I just noticed that a lot in his career. And 2, actually playing against someone like Spirit, I think actually one of the few players he does respect that he thinks can get the better of him is Donk. So I'm very interested to see what Spirit can cook and if Vitality's nerve will hold. Remember, they're not just the favourite, they are the biggest favourite in the history of Counter-Strike because of all the tournaments they've won before this. In fact, no one's beaten them at Best of X except once at the beginning of the year, the first time they played LAN and in that final, obviously. in the semis rather. And so I actually think I am going to take Vitality. Spoiler, I'm going to take Vitality to win the whole thing. But I don't think you should look past the Spirit one, though. I do think Spirit has very little pressure on them, because I don't think people, even they maybe, thought they were going to win this major. But I think you've already seen, right, they're going to take care of Mouse themselves. Falcons was a massive danger for them. They're already out in the tournament. Then you've just got Vitality. Now, yes, Vitality is the hardest team to beat, but that means this is your final. This semi is your final. By the way, if Spirit makes the final, they probably beat Faze 2. But I think that Vitality is going to hold. I think that, look, I would guess, by the way, they won't just cruise. I think they'll have a couple of 2-0s. They'll probably 2-0 Navi. They could 2-0 Faze in the final if Faze can't get the clutch factor. I think against Spirit, it can be 3 maps. It can be exciting. We can have an overtime game. We can have 13-11. But the key thing is they will pull through. I also think right now, just right now, I actually think Apex is a better caller than... I was thinking of Alexi B there. He's much better. He's a better call than Alexi B. He's a much better call than Chopper, in my opinion. So I think right now, Spirit semis is still good. Still a good enough performance. Sort of par when you consider where they were in the world. But hey, there's a world they could have had a different match where they could have played a Vitality the first round. So I think Vitality wins this major. I'm sad it's not a BO5 final, because I'd be very sure they'd win. But bear in mind, basically, the hardest match for them is probably going to be the semi-finals. I think when they make the final, they beat anyone from the other side. If it's not Faze Clan, by the way, I think Furia has almost no chance. And I forget it, unless Mongols does something really inspired that I've never seen on stage, it's not going to be them, and there is zero chance it's going to be Pain. So I am going to take Vitality to win the major against Faze Clan in the final, Spirit in the semis, the other one will be Faze and Furia, and then there you go. That's a pretty easy one for me. I think we got that one locked up.
Hey, it's simple, you're watching Thorin channel. Shut the fuck up, you fucking bitch.
You know I'm always rep my set, and the people who've got my back are the following people who support my videos. Matt Pugnatio Rajcula, Jasun, Jensen Goh, Tosh, Torin, and you know the all-time ride or die, Jerky's Minion, isn't it? Special thanks to him. Do you want to suggest a topic or a guest for my content? Want to find out who the upcoming interview subjects are? Do you want to take part in one of those long discussions with me where you set the topics? Maybe you want to ask me a question for my video AMA? Well, all of those perks and more are available where? At the Patreon link in the description box below. So put your money where your mouth is and join the Scruminati today. You dig?